All right, guys, I see the gameplay rolling, or actually the video, but our stream is live, so let's get this party started, shall we? What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Xbox Roundtable Podcast, your source Sunday nights for Xbox talk and more from around the industry. This being show number 254, and hey, naturally, I'm your host, Invader, and it is great to be back in action. Last weekend, I was moving back into my newly renovated house. There's still some things to do, but overall, I am glad to be back. Welcome. As more people start filing in here, tonight we got quite a few things to go over. Like, honestly, never a dull moment in the game industry the past year. Things just keep happening. And hey, that's great for us, right? There's been an escalation in Xbox talk, the Xbox buyout of Activision. The FTC seemed to want to sour things a bit, so we'll do a deep dive on that. As well, the Game Awards have come and gone. We'll give our thoughts on this year's show. Also, our impressions of the Callisto Protocol, that horror title. I know a bunch of guys on the panel have been playing that, so hey, I want to get some thoughts on it. But you know what? We will dive into all that good stuff. But of course, I can't start without introducing this awesome assembly of people we have here. Starting off with, let's see, Centurion. Buddy, how's it going?
I'm doing great, man. It's Sunday night. Time for some TXR. I'm already getting off my 2 hours with Wilmy Hood over Gaming Beyond the Box. For those who don't know, the show has moved to Sunday nights, starting at 7 Eastern. And yeah, man, it's time to keep this discussion going. Uh, and if anybody's curious, the only thing I've been really playing is I've obviously already rolled the credits on Callisto Protocol. We'll get into that more later. And I have been playing the Outer Worlds, man. I'm Murder on Eridanos. I'm trying to finish the DLC so I can finally cap that game out of my backlog, because I actually bought the game with the DLC, like the board approved edition, and it's just been sitting there, and I finally want to get it knocked out. And I've been having a lot of fun playing that.
All right, good to know. Yeah, I've been tempted with the DLC too. I've been kind of going over the different deals going on with the season passes. I'm kind of wanting to grab the Dragon Ball Z Kakarot season pass. So,
I already did. I bought Kakarot during the Black. I did Kakarot during the Black Friday. So you could have bought the whole package for $50, but if you bought Kakarot by itself during the sale, it was $15, and then they sold the season pass for $12.50. So I essentially built the entire thing for like literally less than $40. I was excited that they put the season pass on sale.
yeah, me too. I'm a huge Dragon Ball fan. I think I'm gonna be picking it up soon, the actual game. So that's why there's been a lot of good deals on for it. That's why I also want to grab the season pass. Growing up, I was a huge Dragon Ball Z fan, and even original Dragon Ball. So, just kind of makes sense. Hey, let me know in the chat if you guys are huge Dragon Ball fans. Moving on down here, General MLD, buddy pal, how you been?
Hey, yeah, doing pretty good. Let's see, I've been playing Far Cry 4. I bought that and Far Cry 6 on the Black Friday sale, so I'm looking forward to that. But also just been hammering away at Plague Tale 2, finally almost finishing it. But yeah, otherwise just keeping an eye out for this news here. Once again, we'll be talking about the acquisition, but that's just how things are. Looking forward to it though.
Hey.
Yeah, I know, right? Yay.
Is this your first time playing Far Cry 4?
It is actually. I played Far Cry 3 in the past. When Far Cry 5 went to Game Pass, I'm okay. Well, what the hell? I'll play that too. And I guess that got me kind of going. So now I'm finishing all the modern Far Cries. I tried 2 in the past. I couldn't quite get into it. So I know that could be sacrilegious to some. Apparently that Far Cry 2 is very popular, but
no. Far Cry 2 was a decent game. I bought it on a whim.
yeah.
And then Far Cry 3 really hammered me into being a fan of the series. And I remember Far Cry 4 was one of the first games I bought when I got my Xbox One, because I waited like a year after the console came out to get it. and I had a huge blast playing Far Cry 4. I couldn't put that game down until it was like done. So,
Oh yeah, I'm having a great time. So yeah, that's just me there. I'm like about halfway done the game right now. So yeah, pretty good.
I think I just beat that this year myself. I think that was on the list. I think that's the Far Cry I beat.
Yeah, I'll do Far Cry 6 in the new year.
That's the Pagan Min one, right?
that's
Yes,
Pagan
it
Min,
is.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that's the one I beat this year.
So did you do Far Cry 5 then?
I beat that on Game Pass like about a month ago.
Okay, cool.
I
So
thi-
that means when you do Far Cry 6, if you got the season pass, you'd be able to know like all the DLC stuff that dealt with the 3 bad guys from the previous games.
Oh, is that canon or is it like a fantasy what if?
It's like a fantasy what if. It kind of goes like down the realm of like how Blood Dragon was. Like Blood Dragon was technically part of Far Cry 3, but it had nothing to do with the actual story.
Okay, because I wasn't sure if they were canon or not. Okay, but yeah, should be fun. I do like the villains. The modern Far Cry games, I love all their villains.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think that's what's really set the series apart is, a lot of series try to aim for the perfect protagonist or the perfect hero. Far Cry has like kind of like solidified itself in having like the best main character enemies.
Oh yeah, and the gameplay loop is just solid. Like they make a damn good FPS. Not a fan of the check marks on the map though. I just more or less do my own thing.
Well, hey, Ubisoft titles, they are, they are,
Marky.
yeah, check marky. I was about to say check marky. Lots of things to do. I know I'm kind of making a joke there, but I mean, hey, I do like the Far Cry games. I did start Far Cry 5, and I do have all this the DLC for that, as I do have the gold edition, I think it's called. Again, I know I say this a lot, but it's in the backlog, unfortunately. But I do plan on playing everything, absolutely everything. And Far Cry 3 kicks ass. Let's see, Crusader Bud, I know you just chimed in, but how you been?
I'm good. My week, I've been mostly kind of just waiting for the Witcher patch that's coming out next week. So I'm not deep into any kind of game. I played a little bit of As Dusk Falls, continued the Ascent a little bit because I had put that down like a long time ago and picked it back up, and now I'm trying to finish it. But I've been playing a lot of Fortnite Chapter 4 because they added Doom Guy as a skin on the Battle Pass, and I really want Doom Guy. And I bought the Gears skins. They have Old Man Marcus Phoenix and Kate Diaz as skins in Fortnite, so I bought those. And I've been playing Destiny 2 Season 19, Season of the Seraph. The season's pretty good so far. The new dungeon dropped on Friday, and it was excellent. Beat it blind.
All right, very nice. Getting in some gaming. I haven't been able to really get into anything the past week, actually 2 weeks. So I cannot wait to have some time over like Christmas, over the holidays, and just like get in some gaming. Honestly, like I need it badly. Just so everybody knows, Shockley he's supposed to be coming. He's just running a little behind at the moment because of an engagement. As well, Timmy should be here too, as far as we know, so don't fret, guys. Don't fret. But before we begin, reminder that you guys can catch us on many other platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and many others. Also, hey, we're on a wide availability of video platforms such as Rumble. We got a presence there. So, hey, sub to us there because options are pretty good. And by the way, guys, let everybody know that we are currently live. We do the best that we can to notify everybody, and YouTube, not really that reliable at times. So if you could please share this video out, give it a like. That helps too with algorithm purposes. And sub to the channel if you're new here. We like new faces. We like to see everybody. The more the merrier. So please, hey, sub to the channel. We'd love to have you stick around. All right. And we already got some pretty cool people in the chat here. But guys, let's move straight into our first topic of the night. We're going to kick things off with the Game Awards. The show was this past Thursday and saw, of course, many awards handed out, along with a bunch of new trailers and new game announcements, too. Now, General MLD, my friend, why don't you kick things off for us on this one? I don't know if you had a chance to watch it, but if so, wait, what'd you think of it overall, and did anything catch your eye?
Well, I mean, judging purely on its own merits, I think one of the better game awards that Keighley has put on. I think people can agree that the awards in the past, they were a little bit bloated. A lot of ads gamers didn't really care about, things like that. So this was more condensed and actually had some, pretty decent reveals. So I mean, just off the top of my head here, you got what, Final Fantasy 16 that was shown. It has a date of June. Armored Core 6 was revealed. I'm actually looking forward to that. Like I like kind of games with mechs and Gundams, things like that. Hades 2. Kevin Levine's next game, Judas. So having just replayed BioShock Remastered, earlier this year. I'm looking forward to what this guy has in store. It looks pretty intriguing. So I'm keeping an eye out for that. Death Stranding 2, Star Wars Jedi Survivor. So some pretty good announcements here. And I think Diablo 4, Street Fighter 6, stuff like that. Now I can go on, but there you go. It was a pretty packed showcase overall. So, and there was that whole little Bill Clinton thing at the end. That was just hilarious. So so there's that. But overall, as an Xbox fan, I think we can all say that it was a bit lacking. I think we all expected something. I'm personally a little bit disappointed. I feel like if Xbox wasn't gonna do anything substantial, they should have sent out a tweet, some kind of notice to keep our expectations in check. Because historically, Xbox has a pretty decent presence at the Game Awards. So I mean, it is what it is. And it's also unfortunate with the whole FTC suing Xbox kind of thing, because if we had a day before, 2 days before that news broke, it was a pretty good vibes overall. People were pretty optimistic. I would go so far as to say that if we went into the Game Awards and that news didn't break yet, I feel like Xbox fans could almost even be excited for games like Crash Bandicoot, that 4 vs 4 player game, Diablo 4, because it's kind of like, even though it's not Xbox's yet technically, it feels like they would have been, like, tangibly in the future. I'm still confident they'll go through, but I feel like the vibe would have been a little more positive. It would have been like, a little more claimable for Xbox fans. But, that news did hit, and therefore the games didn't really have that attachment to the Xbox brand. But overall, silver lining, I do think Xbox, they read the room. Aaron Greenberg sent out a tweet saying, we don't have to wait too much longer. They're going to have an Xbox event early next year. So I think they know they messed up, but they're going to try and make up for it, hit 2023 with the ground running. That is my hope. So, but overall, I think for the Game Awards, I'm looking forward to Diablo 4 regardless. I had a great time with Diablo 3. Armored Core, and otherwise, overall a good show.
All right. Now, you brought some pretty interesting points there, MLD. Oh, Timmy has entered the chat, as Crusader said. Tim, what's up, buddy? Timmy's on mute.
There.
He's saying up.
All right.
I'm here. Just I'm hitting the thing. No, happy to be here. So I was running a little late. Heard the conversation just going on right now. Have something to add to it. So when you guys want me to, I will. I'm just happy to be here.
Oh yeah, hey, Tim, actually, go right ahead. Share your thoughts. We're talking about the Game Awards, VGA.
Yeah, the disaster.
Well,
disaster. Well, listen, Sony had a very good day. I think Sony had a very good day. I think it would have been extremely hard for Xbox fans, and myself included, if God of War won, because that would have been pretty crazy. That would have been shoved right in our faces. With a little backstory to this, I kind of knew they were going in light. So my disappointment was when I was told that at that time. So for me, it's kind of like when you know something's coming up and then it happens. It's not that big of a deal, as opposed to where you guys were sitting. and it happens, and you're like, what's going on here? We just had a Samsung Xbox commercial and replaced, or whatever that indie game is called. It looks very good. What went on here? Sony came out big. They had this Stranding 2, Death Stranding 2. They had Forbidden. They had a bunch of stuff. The ton of awards they won. So it was definitely a tough time of definitely a tough time, and for Xbox fans. So I get it, but I do think that the reality is that Xbox is going to have a show in January. Sorry, I'm just moving location to location. But yeah, they're going to have a show in January. And I think what didn't make sense will make sense when it happens. I don't know why they did what they did, to be honest. But they will have a show. They got to date these games, and they got to show these games.
Can I ask you a question, Tim? Because you're the one who could answer this for me. Best one. The years that they had XOs, did they skip the Game Awards?
Oh yeah.
What was the question once again? I'm just, I said I was just moving.
Well, the years that they had the XOs that were also in December, didn't they also show like one or two things at the Game Awards too?
Yeah. The answer to that was, I don't know if something was personal that went on. If they wanted to personally take down Jeff, or what was the thing, but yes.
I mean, they still held it in their theater and like ran ads with Samsung and Verizon, you know. Like,
yeah, I don't know. I think, to be honest, I think they're gonna have a show. In their infinite wisdom, they wanted to show what they have coming in 2023 in 2023.
Yeah,
but I think it backfired.
I mean, I think it makes sense. I think it makes sense to have an XO. I think we.
Well, I don't think it's going to be necessarily an XO. I think it'll be a show where, here's the deal: you got Dark Tide in January, you have Atomic Hearts in February, you have.
Well, even the Age of Empires console stuff is in January.
You got you got those in January.
GoldenEye somewhere in the mix.
Right, I think Wulong. You have Wulong in March. You have the show, which I believe that they made a new deal with Major League Baseball. I'm not positive of that, but I'm going to go on a limb and say that there is a deal there. So you got the show coming to Game Pass again. Then you have 3 dates. One that we all want to see even more of. They haven't shown enough of Starfield. They can show a level being played easy. You can take a part of the game, a really good part of the game, and play a level, play 15 minutes of it, show it off. Everyone will love it. Starfield. They have Forza, who's going to have in-game ray tracing on Series S, which is absolutely crazy, and it's a big deal. Looks incredible, I heard. Going to blow away anything that's comparable on the racing genre. Going to be very special. They haven't shown any gameplay of that. They got to show that being played, and they definitely can go a little bit deeper with Redfall. They got to show those games, and they got to date those games, okay? This is according to their 12-month view, all right, that they touted in June. And we're in now January, let's say. So they got to do all that, and that's a ton of stuff I just announced, okay? They have to do that. They also have to announce E3, which they could probably do there. So there's something coming. I can guarantee you, and that was the tweet that Aaron did. The question is why did they skip the Game Awards? And the answer is I don't know. I don't know if it's something personal between Jeff and the ESA, and Xbox was trying to back channel him or trying to play hardball with him to say, hey, we're not going to show up next year or any other years. We'll just have our show if you're not going to support E3. And there's a big thing between Jeff and the ESA with that. So I don't know if it's that. I don't know if it's last year they were all working on the Activision deal, and the month of December, which is always a month where basically everyone gets off, they were all working, or were on alert, and it was very different. So you might have that, and they said, "Oh, we'll just take off and we'll just have January," or they had a marketing plan where they said, "Well, let's show all the stuff in March. I mean, in January to start the year off, and then we're gonna have the year off, start and running." I mean, they didn't even have a high. Did they even have a High on Life? They didn't have that. So
they had Atomic Heart and Replaced were the two
right, and both of those are multi-plat, right? Well, is Atomic Replaced the multi-plat?
I'm not sure. I'll look it up.
Okay,
I have a feeling it's timed.
Right there. Okay, so something is fishy there. Wouldn't you agree? And the way that Phil looked tired. He didn't look like he wanted to be there. And that would tell me that they have something else. They have something else planned, and that's the only thing that makes sense. And I got a lot of flack on Twitter, and I get it because, like I said, I might have been a little bit, set up for this because I kind of knew it. But the theological part of me said this can't be just it. They can't have their head up this ass not to show any of that. So I think that when it came out, Aaron tweeted, and I've also heard that there's rumors that they're gonna have something. They gotta have something. It's not are they? They gotta have something. Or they have to have some type of plan to lay out these games.
I get that.
Well,
I get that showing up with soon stuff, right? Like, that showing up with stuff miles out. You know what I mean? I get that.
Right, but they still got 6 months. When have you remembered a game that's been talked about and then not dated within 6 months? It's like you're getting to the point where these games need to be dated, or they're going to be delayed. Or
there's 7 of them. There's 7 first-party titles that are supposed to come out.
Yeah, so I mean, listen, we're laughing about it, but they have to have a plan for this. If they don't have a plan for this, then maybe there really is something wrong. But I can't think that they have a plan, and I think that it's going to show off. Now, if we look back at this, I think it was a mistake. They definitely screwed up. They had a chance to be on the big stage, and they done very well with that the last 3 years. I don't know why they didn't, keep on with the tradition. I don't know why. Something tells me something was at play there, and I don't know if it's an ESA to Jeff play or I explained all those things. I don't know, but it just doesn't make any sense that they wouldn't even have Higher Life, a game that's coming out in 4 or 5 days, the date there. That tells me that, okay, then there is really something here that's going on. There is a little bit of blackballing here. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense to me to just not have one date. And I heard High on Life is pretty good too. So it's not like the game is, you're dealing with a 50 Metacritic game that they just want to forget about. I'm hearing it's going to be a decent game.
Tomorrow.
Exactly. Yeah. Metacritic's tomorrow. We'll know more about it. But you don't even have a date or a show of that. So I get it. So all the Xbox guys that I was kind of going back and forth, I kind of was going back because I was just saying you got to understand that they are going to show. But I do understand what you're saying. I do understand your frustration, especially looking back at it. And thinking about why would they do that, or if they do this in the future, don't ever do that again, because it was a shitty day to begin with, and it just compiled and times it by 3 with the FTC to do with that whole thing, and then you had the Game Awards where they were an absolute no-show, and they didn't even answer, and then you get one tweet from Aaron saying, "Oh, okay." For a company that Xbox, where they're very good in communications and they're very good dealing with fans a lot, they always have this one thing where they just have something where you're scratching your head and what is going on here? Why is this happening? Why are they could have at the very least they could have had Monster Hunter Rise announced going to Game Pass day one. That would have at least made one person happy. They went into the Game Awards, in my opinion, with the objectivity to make no one happy, and that's why I bring up my rumor or whatever, not the rumor, but of my thinking: is this a play against Jeff and his whole thing with PSA?
I would feel like they wouldn't offer to host it, and they wouldn't run their ads at all. Like that doesn't line up for me. You know what I mean? Like they did run ads, and
but like, why would you not have more announcements? I agree. Like I said, I'm not saying that that's the reason. I'm just throwing a bone out there. Like, why would they do it? Is it would you say we'll all agree it was curious that they had no show, right?
Yeah, some people say it's the FTC causing it. That like they wanted to look small for regulators, but this is shit that's coming out. Like I'm not complaining that they aren't showing like Indiana Jones or I mean I want Avowed, right? And I was setting myself up for the copium with Avowed, right? But I even said that before the show. It's like, man, I'm gonna be disappointed because I want this to be here and I know it's not gonna be. But like, so like I wasn't expecting anything like past what they've already announced in their fiscal year window, right? Like. Right. Because anyone, like, because, like, what's mind-boggling to me is the FTC has their entire roadmap, period, end of story. They have their entire content roadmap. They have to, as part of the deep analysis of their stuff. Every regulator in the world has all of their financials, right? Like, they have to. And more than that, they have probably very detailed, like, assets of their financials for this current fiscal year. Probably next fiscal year too, like their analysis as to how they think the next fiscal year is going to go. But let's just look at this fiscal year that ends in June, right, for Microsoft, because Microsoft's Q4 is 2023 Q2, right? So it'll end in June, and I'm just like, they have 7 games in that period that's supposed to announce. So they are going to have a detailed budgetary analysis of exactly how they think they're going to do, right, for their financials. They have to. Every company has that, right? And so I'm just shocked that they didn't even bother to show up with the stuff that was going to be out, even up to March, right? The stuff that has to be out, that would be out before any of the regulators are even done.
Agreed, I agree.
Have to market. And to me, I've said this in conversations with a lot of people, if they were hiding from the FTC with this is the exact, like, and they were trying to not give the FTC, or, I'm saying FTC, it could be the EC, it could be the CMA, it could be whoever, I don't care. But to me, that gives those regulators more ammo when you have this kind of reaction from, like, news stories, like, where were they? They're always here, right? And then you look down into it, and it's like, well, they have 7 things to market. Why weren't they there? Right? It's so transparent.
You know, it is interesting. True. It is interesting too because, you know, the past couple of years they've had a pretty strong showing at the Game Awards.
Right? It totally.
Right, they were all set up.
It totally moves off of like how they operate as a normal business, right? They are changing how they operate as a normal business, and they have stuff due in 6 months.
Something has changed, and I do have it could very well have an effect from these, again, ongoing boards, FTC, and so on, commissions, what they're going through right now. Or you know what, guys, they might have just always planned to have a separate, I don't know, maybe
well, I think that's definitely happening.
You know, they have enough content now. They have enough content where technically they could show, like, I don't know, a half an hour thing. Maybe they do, like, maybe not an XO, but like a direct,
40 minutes easy.
Maybe do like a Nintendo Direct style thing, you know?
But unfortunately though, it's about the exposure, though. The Game Awards just have more viewership, so that's why I think it's a missed opportunity.
Yeah. And
yes,
I've been hypercritical myself of Sony for skipping every industry event since like 2018, right? Sony doesn't show up to anything. They finally showed up to this. They showed up in force to this with new releases and shit, right? But I've been hypercritical of them for skipping industry events for years because I like it when the industry acts as an industry and not as individual players, right? But we have these cool events where we expect everyone to show up, like Gamescom and E3 and the Game Awards, right? And I've praised Microsoft for years for always showing up even when they don't even really have, like Gamescom they showed up to this year. They reiterated E3, they didn't show us anything. I don't think we got anything new, did we?
No.
At Gamescom this year?
No, not really.
Very little, maybe but you're right. It was a rehash and it wasn't.
They showed up to that, but they couldn't show up to this with a Starfield trailer for a game that's coming out in the next 2 quarters.
Yeah, it doesn't make much sense. And they could have shown, and I know for a fact that Starfield's in a decent place where, like I talked, if they had shown they take a specific part of the game and they show a level off gameplay, I think just to get people to get the idea, they definitely could have done something. Bethesda's a big time company. This was, I hate to say it, this was planned, and the bottom line is that myself too. You bring up a good point. And I really didn't think about that. I've always been on Xbox for being the showing up, and they didn't show up on this, so they deserve the L. They deserve the criticism in a way, and they got to do better. They got to do better than that. They can't. They used to, few and far between. They would have these hiccups. It used to be much more common, and they've learned a lot. But they should have answered for this, and maybe we get some clarity because, like we've all said, that just talk to us and say you have the game. Minimize this and say, you know what, we're going to show the games. Aaron did a little bit of it. I do think that we might get something this week, maybe, or next week, some type of press release.
I think they have.
When they say soon, it's usually the following week. So I could keep your eyes out on it, but it doesn't change the fact that they took an L here. And it is hypocritical of myself. I should have been maybe the night of. Like I said, I was set up for it. But looking back and reading the comments, and I've always been a person to say if I'm wrong, or maybe if I kind of was dismissive to some of the tweets, just because I was just aggravated overall. But they screwed up there, and I should have maybe gave it to him a little. I'm at a point where I'm very happy with Xbox, because I remember a point where they were just like dead in the water, and they really were going the wrong way. But when they're spending $67 billion and they're trying to make this all work, and they've been hit with delays and stuff that, I do know what they have coming. We all know what they have coming. I kind of maybe give them a little more leeway, but it really doesn't change the fact that this was a screw up that they deserve to be called out on. And I'm calling them out now. You got to do better than that. You can't leave us out leave us out on an island like that as fans. We're all expecting something. At the very least, if you show Starfield and you show the game and you show it off pretty cool, because the game's going to be very good. You show it off, and you date it. That would have shut everyone up. That's all they had to do.
Even Forza would have shut everyone up.
Exactly.
Right? A game
Even
that they have
Forza
holistically owned for years, right?
So,
if they want to hide their other acquisitions, fine. But
right, and I don't think it's an FTC thing. I just think that they were thinking, oh, well, we'll just do our own show. But they forgot the fact that this is the most views, this is the most eyes. And they forgot the fact that Xbox fans have now been conditioned from the last 3 years where they've had Perfect Dark, they've had a console and a game shown off, Hellblade. Then they showed,
Yakuza
they've had
Game Pass.
Yeah, remember that? Yeah,
Arc
100%. Yeah, they had really good shows, and then for them to have a Samsung commercial is a little bit of a slap in the face. And like I said, I will probably rehash it with some of the people. Like I said, I kind of was. I just, in my mind, is it's like you got to realize that they're going to have something, but that doesn't take away the fact that they really did shitty optics here, and they didn't communicate well, and poor planning, because there is no way in hell that they don't have a plan for this, because if they don't, then they should be out of the industry, because they got, like you said, 7 games not dated. Half of them don't even have gameplay even shown. You had little tidbits here and there for Starfield. Forza's just been freaking CGI. Like, come on. Like, we're ready now, and hopefully tomorrow they fix this mess up, and they say what they're going to say. But that they got to not do this stuff, and they've been pretty good in avoiding these mishaps. But they kind of, even Ryan from IGN, like, it capped off a shitty year, and with even shittier shit. So it wasn't a good day. It was honestly one of the worst days. Somebody was telling me compared to the Xbox One. No, it wasn't that bad.
It's not that
Xbox is in a really good place in a lot of other areas. But it was a bad day.
At least the console is good.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
exactly.
And you got
what
Game
it
Pass.
does is good. The content we want it is good.
And there's a
Now,
lot of games coming.
despite Xbox having basically a no-show there, I mean, I thought there were some really good announcements here. I mean, the actual award show itself, I thought, the host or hostess or whatever was kind of Al Pacino didn't seem like he wanted to be there.
No.
Christopher Judge was.
That was hilarious.
Is that like a Guinness record or something? Like,
Legend says he's still on that stage today.
Holy crap! That was crazy.
I went to the bathroom and came back. He's still going. Like,
well,
I'm like, is this guy
I don't
really?
think he expected to win.
I thought he was
I
high.
don't think
To
he
be
was
honest,
prepared.
I thought he was high.
He might have been high. Who knows?
Um,
That was what, a 10-minute speech?
It was a
More.
10-minute speech,
More.
yeah. That when they stopped him and he tweeted that he forgot to thank his wife.
Yeah, but that was like, you just don't do that. That was so odd. That's why I think that he was, not with it, if you catch my drift. But again, personally, I thought there was some really awesome trailers, like,
Might have been on some edibles.
yeah, right. Like that game Judas, Ken Levine's new game.
Hell yeah.
Like,
Yeah, that looks good.
Come on, like that's a BioShock right there, but like in space from the looks of it. I don't know. That's what I get. That looks sick. Even like the new Crash game, the Crash Team Rumble, that 4v4 multiplayer game. I'm down for that. That's a pretty cool family game. And of course, hey, I'm a Warhammer guy. I'm a 40K guy. That Space Marine 2 gameplay, my God, that looks kick-ass.
Good.
That looks kick-ass. So, like, I thought there was a lot of good.
We've been negative Nancy's. Why don't we each say something good that we saw, if we saw anything good? If anyone
Well, I could say Final Fantasy 16 looked the best to me out of everything. I mean, there was a good Star Citizen show, but it sucks that it's going to be a year exclusive or 2 years. I don't know why that happened. It's kind of shitty, but that is what it is. I do have a PlayStation 5 and I do have a PC. I think it's just strictly for PlayStation 5 right now. It's time. That game was the most impressive to me. And there was a lot of stuff, but yeah, that game looks sick.
Now, Centurion Pal, I mean, I would love to know your thoughts on the Game Awards. Like, how did you think it was? And, like, what trailers, what announcements, gameplay, whatever it is, really, what'd you think of it?
Well, if you want to know, I've been sitting here quiet because I've wanted everybody to get it out of their system before I chimed in. Yeah. So that's where the Game Awards, you want me to be blunt? Well, for starters, after Christopher Judge's speech, I checked out and I actually started playing a game. I said, I'm going to be blunt. I said, fuck this. I'm watching something else. I'm going to do something else. I couldn't stand it. And then all of a sudden I go on Twitter and everybody's making jokes about their Reformed Orthodox rabbi, Bill Clinton. And I had to find out what, like, dude, I'm sorry, Jeff Keighley, this is the sad part about your show, man. And I'm not trying to be a dick and saying it, but that kid made me go back and watch the whole thing all over again. I waited the entire droning on a couple hours long show just to see him do that. And that's it. It's pretty sad because you saw Jeff Keighley's face on that. He was so uncomfortable that happened. But dude, that was the highlight of your show that night. But that's where I'm also not going to criticize Christopher Judge. I've been watching Christopher Judge since I was literally in the single digits. I remember him on Stargate SG-1 when they were gluing that gold plate on his forehead, and the only thing he could say was "indeed."
Teal'c.
And yeah, Teal'c. And that's where I'm going to be upfront. It's nice to see him starting to get his dues. He's actually a really great actor. He's done a lot of good for the sci-fi genre itself, the sci-fi community. And I mean, like, to watch, I mean, he almost broke down in tears. That was bittersweet for him. That man almost gave up on acting because of the politics and the BS that takes place in acting. Because literally he watched a show that he put 10 years or more than 10 years of his life into, with Stargate SG-1, become a complete shit show because they wanted to, the Sci-Fi Channel bought the series and they wanted to recast the entire thing with the cast from Farscape. And that's where, you know, he's been through hell when it comes to his acting career, and he found new invigorated love for what he does by becoming Kratos. And he's even starting to become like, Dave Bautista. He's actually starting to petition to play Kratos in the live action series or movie or whatever it is that somebody is wanting to do. He's actually wanting to go on and play Kratos on the screen. So that's going to be really cool if he could pull that on. What'd you say?
It'd be sick.
Oh, it would. He's already Kratos. I mean, like, boy. Every time he would say the word boy, I would just think about Teal'c when he was talking to his son Ryak in SG-1.
Indeed, boy.
Give him a beard, yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. And that's where, like, so, I mean, there was high points and low points. I just got off Gaming Beyond the Box. I like how Piniac Giant said it. It felt like 30 minutes before the show, Jeff Keighley was outside having a cigarette or doing whatever, and he ran into Al Pacino and was like, "Hey, do you want to come out on stage real quick?" It felt like Al Pacino was like some kind of a shoo-in. Don't know why he was there. That was interesting to watch him come out and have problems with the teleprompter. But there was also great stuff. Like, my wife, totally was not into the show. And then all of a sudden, what's her name? Haley Hensley, the chick that Halsey came out and sang the song for Diablo 4. That completely was like, I can't believe she's actually here doing that. And then, like, I touched on the actor who plays Cal for Jedi Fallen Survivor, also Jedi Fallen Order. So that's where it's good to see a named actor, somebody who has made a career out of being on the screen and in video games, but you could see the enjoyment that he has, that he is a character in a Star Wars video game because he likes video games and he likes Star Wars, and you could see the joy in his passion at playing that character. He doesn't come off as some actor that's just like, yeah, I was paid an absorbent amount of money to play this game character and I could give a crap less about the game that I'm in. And we're seeing more actors starting to come out. We saw the Crime Boss game. We've got Chuck Norris, Danny Glover, Ice Cube, Danny Trejo. I mean, there is more celebrities in that game than I think I've ever seen in any game, especially with Chuck Norris. There's a lot of great stuff to be embraced from this. But this is where I also happen to probably be on a hill on my own, a camp on my own. I'm not alone in the camp because I've gotten conversations from people off Twitter, but regretfully, the whole situation with the FTC did affect this show. Last Sunday when, thank you, Invader, for letting me host the show. At the end of the show, I did say, check your hopes and dreams because this is going to affect that. An article came out on Game Rant back in October. Sony may cancel its PlayStation showcase because of the Microsoft Activision-Blizzard-King deal. How come it's okay for Sony to have the strategy to keep their mouth shut, but Xbox has to go out there and throw all their cards on the table and fuel the fire that has already been lit underneath them? You can tell from Phil's... Huh?
I bitched about that too. I called Sony out and said it's bullshit. So, like, I mean, it's not like I'm picking
you know what though?
myself.
And this is where I also tell people, your hopes, your dreams, your wants aren't worth $69 billion. You as one consumer, 100 consumers, 1,000 consumers, This is the biggest deal the gaming industry has ever seen. This is why you're seeing companies act certain ways that you've never seen before, because this would be the biggest monetary exchange in gaming history. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of red tape. It's a lot of regulators, and it's a lot of lawyers. Not only lawyers on Microsoft's side, but you also have lawyers over there on the Activision side that are like, hey, if you guys blow this deal, you owe me $3 billion. So you better do as you're told. We all don't know what's all written in that contract. As much as we would love for Microsoft to show these games, I would love it. I'm not over here capping saying that to give them the pass, but also at the same time, I'm saying you have to be understanding. This is growing pains. As soon as Microsoft announced the deal in January, I used to be on another show. We won't get into that, but everybody was out here like the coming of Christ. We are getting Microsoft, Activision-Blizzard-King. We have won this war. And I was one of the few that was like, hey, calm down. You have no idea the roller coaster ride you're about to go on. And also, there's going to be some sacrifices that are going to have to be made. And those sacrifices involve reveals, shows, and other stuff, because they wanted, in my opinion, to let Sony have this night. Let them come out on top. Let them look like the dominant freaking force that they are in gaming. As a matter of fact, go look at the show and you will see on that Crash Bandicoot trailer, it says captured on PS5 in big, white print down on the bottom. It was captured on PS5. They are literally controlling a narrative. I am sorry for everybody that really wanted Microsoft to come out there and lay waste like they have for the past few years with the release of the Series S family of consoles and having really great shows, showing stuff for Game Pass. But honestly, we're playing chess here, not checkers. And this is where they are controlling the narrative. They are not wanting to go head-to-head with Sony when it comes to competing. Let Sony come out on top. Let them control market share, because Xbox, they could probably have another show like Tim Dog is saying. I really hope they do. But by having a show without Sony there, they could still continue to control that narrative. And I really think that's what they're looking for right now, because they don't want to fuel the issues that are coming out of this FTC situation. Purely because the FTC, they are not the FTC that Microsoft is used to. They are literally reaching for new powers, and there's a lot of politics and shenanigans going on in the FTC. Dude, they're not even considering Nintendo a player against Sony and Microsoft. How the hell does that work? I can go in the video game section of Best Buy right now and find Nintendo in the video game sections, but for some reason, according to the FTC, they are a non-player because they don't have an air quotation marks high performance console. Mm-hmm. So, and that's where, like, dude, this is growing pains. I wanted Microsoft to definitely come out, but there was that little voice in the back of my head, the businessman, that tells me, like, on my professional side, because of what I do for the company I work for, I don't think Microsoft is going to show up. And literally, they literally didn't show up, other than Phil Spencer sitting on camera looking insanely uncomfortable, because I'm pretty sure he's being told he has to sit on his head. He is watching everybody talk shit about the brand that he has put so much blood, sweat, and tears into, and I'm pretty sure he wants to march right up on that stage and shut everybody up, but he can't.
Well, there's something going on.
I still think that if this is them, looking small, they overplayed that hand. They should have brought something. A single game. Minecraft Legends, even. The great multi-plat one that's coming out this year, right? The minor game, the little one.
Like I said, if you're trying to control that narrative of, like, we want Sony to seem uber dominant, they could have a smaller show, like Tim Dog is saying they could, and therefore they're not going to be going head to head, because the FTC is going to be like, oh look, they dominated the Game Awards, and here comes Xbox with a small little show that's going to get very little bit of mind share, other than with what the FTC refers to as the serious gamers. They're not even wanting to use the term hardcore. They're wanting to say serious gamers. And
I still think they overplayed their hand because it looks physically different from past years. Like, it is obviously different. But articles are being written about it in the news.
But we're also dealing with the biggest deal in gaming
which
history.
means that they're actually, like, because if they're going to be looking at it for them going head-to-head, they're also going to be looking at any article that's written. So if people are out here saying, what happened? Why weren't they there this year? That's going to raise red flags. So I think they overplayed their hand of hiding, of
also,
not going ahead.
I think they're also, the FTC, they're more ideologically driven. They don't really care that Sony is the market leader. They only see Microsoft as $1 trillion corporation.
Yeah.
They're so disconnected from the gaming industry. They're so tone deaf. They're looking at the wrong thing.
Yeah. So they are. And I said this on Gaming Beyond the Box. I talked about it with Stubbs. I really think the FTC is doing what they're doing because of the freaking Taylor Swift debacle with Ticketmaster. Literally, it
may have inflamed them, yeah.
Dude, I mean, like, I think that's something that is basically, like, we're not taking into consideration because literally, I'm not trying to be insulting what I'm about to say, but Gen Z, a younger demographic, could give a shit about monopoly companies until they couldn't buy Taylor Swift tickets. All of a sudden, we got Taylor Swift over here bringing attention to how Ticketmaster has a monopoly on the industry. And now all of a sudden, everybody's against monopolies. I remember the articles that came out. All of a sudden, millennials are against monopolies because it wasn't video games that drove them to this. It was because they couldn't buy their Taylor Swift tickets. And then they found out that Ticketmaster has control over the entire live event industry when it comes to selling tickets, and you're charged absorbent fees just to buy these tickets. And now all of a sudden, I think the FTC is just trying to make face and be like, oh, look, we're standing up to these big companies. We're trying to make sure they don't become monopolies. But I also really don't think that the FTC wants to win this case either. I mean, they have literally come out with one of the weakest arguments.
They could water thin.
So
dude, yeah, go for it, Invader.
Oh, no, I was just about to say, like, we're about to go into the next topic. I mean, it seems like we're all ready to move on to it. So, I just wanted to, like, just separate it. Has everybody said their piece about the Game Awards, what they thought? Yeah, all right. Just wanted to make sure. Guys, hey, it's great to see you all in the chat. And, hey, it would be great if you gave this the show a like. And you know what? Share it out, guys. Share it out. Let everybody know that we are live now because we'd love to have more people here. Love to see more people. Also, sub to the channel if you're new. Love to see new faces. But yeah, we got a killer chat going on. And guys, let's continue this. Obviously, lots of spicy news regarding the Microsoft and Activision drama. Just a little preface, of course. Earlier this week, the Federal Trade Commission voted to move forward to sue to block Microsoft's acquisition of Activision-Blizzard-King, citing that they're not convinced Xbox wouldn't withhold games from other competing platforms. Now, this is quite interesting stuff as we were just delving into. Now, I know everybody's getting a bit tired of this news. Heck, even we are on the panel. But, hey, you know what? This stuff is pretty important nonetheless, right? So we do got to talk about it. Tim Budd, I'll give you the floor to start us off here. You know, what do you make of the FTC trying to block the deal? Obviously, you know, we just started talking about it. But do you think that, that the FTC... you know, you think they'd be okay with an American company taking over another American company? Like, what's the deal here?
One thing, politics. It's Democrats and the notion that big tech needs to be stand up to, that they have let them go on way too long for numerous years, and they're going to hurt competition. Because they're going to be the one of the few entities in gaming and just big tech and overall. Lena Khan wanted to make a big statement, make a big splash. This was a prime opportunity to do so. It all comes down to that. I think if you're going by actual numbers and facts, they don't have a case, and I think they will lose in court, but what they're hoping is that CMA blocks it and UA blocks it and Xbox walks away. They don't really care about anything else other than saying, you know, we made a statement here, and now anybody who else comes after this, you're going to have to think twice if you're going to do a big merger like this. No way. We are the watchdogs, and it's definitely politically driven. Democrats just by history have always wanted more regulations. Republicans are the opposite. They say less regulation. The board was compiled of 3 Democrats and 1 Republican. And like everything else in politics, it went by party lines. The Republican did not, challenge it. The 3 Democrats challenged it, and supposedly there was, somebody wavering on the Democratic side, probably because they knew the facts, and they're like, hey, maybe this is, this isn't right here. This could affect union workers. This could affect the people at Activision much more harshly if we go through this. But what happens, just like in politics, just like whenever they have these votes, lobbying goes on. I'm sure Elizabeth Warren called the people, and even the lobbying on Xboxes went on with Brad Smith meeting with them and giving them a presentation and stuff like that. It didn't matter what Brad said though, because in the end, Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren were making their phone calls, and they were all up in the air and saying, "Let's stand up to big business and big corporations, and let's make an example." And that's basically what this came down to. Xbox's timing on this was unfortunate. Different time, different year. This would have flew by. Absolutely no objection. Like I said, the numbers back Xbox, because this is a multifaceted deal. Call of Duty, which they bring up, is absorbently more popular on PlayStation. The sales this I think were broken down to 60% on PlayStation, and the rest divvied up with on Xbox and PC. Obviously, PlayStation with the lion's share. The numbers support that. So Xbox was never really going to take off Call of Duty. They said that they would keep it 10 years, and they did a 10-year deal with Nintendo to double down, to say, hey, look, we're committed. Sony's really don't care, because they want the deal to they want the deal to they don't want it in Game Pass. They do not want it to have that advantage for Xbox, which benefits the consumer, by the way, which really the FTC should have some type of a pledge to. But so all that I just explained is pretty much the crux of it. There's no way anybody can make me think otherwise. It disappoints me that just in general, from the Republican side and the Democratic side, that this stuff is always along party lines. People can't think for themselves. They can't look into the situation. And in this situation, it's pretty glaring. The CWA, Chris Shelton wrote an article saying how Xbox is not, Microsoft has been helpful, and they want to unionize the workers, which is a huge deal.
Yeah.
Which people said that Microsoft would never do. They did, and they were backed by CWA. If this goes to Activision and this goes back, good luck with that with your union. You'll see how much that happens. You'll probably see massive layoffs, and you'll have Bobby Kotick still in charge. So they don't care about the workers, in my opinion. And this was a complete political play. And what I feel like is they're just trying to kill the deal. Hopefully that doesn't go the same route. Phil's meeting with CMA in London tomorrow. And, they're going to discuss, I guess, what he's going to discuss. And I'll say this. If CMA and UA and EU block, or either one of them block, I think Xbox is going to walk away. If they don't,
they have an emergency board meeting next week. Microsoft does.
Yeah, and if they don't, this is going to get obliterated in court, and our taxpayers' money is going to go to, basically, a play on a political play on, making a statement to these big companies and not really knowing the facts. And I think if it comes down to law, it favors Xbox. But I just feel that now you're getting real resistance. CMA, I'm hearing, is being a lot more sympathetic, I guess, to Xbox because of their recent pledges and stuff like that. I heard that through a couple of sources. But at this point, I think if you're an Xbox fan and you really want the deal to go through, just hold your horses. I think the new tack now for Xbox and for everyone, just really kind of forget about it. And just if the deal goes through, it goes through. If it doesn't, you're probably going to get a much more interesting Microsoft that's pissed off and ready to spend money at will. I'll preface this by saying that when the deal was made, I talked to a couple of executives, and they already were talking about what the hell is our return on investment, or they said at the time ROI, which I had to look up, to be honest, to see what the hell they were talking about. But that means return on investment, and they were already starting up that talk, like to get the return on investment that Xbox would want for $67 billion could take upwards of 20 years. So them walking away is a big possibility here if it gets real tough. But if they do walk away, I do expect them to be swift, fast, and I expect them to be really aggressive. And I hate to say this, I expect them to be a lot more self-serving this time, because they can easily money hat something and nobody can say anything because of the way Sony has acted, what they went through with this whole thing. They are at liberty to do what they want. That means if they want to go back to making exclusive DLC deals, oh well, you could do it. That means if they want to spend $2 billion on a GTA 6 in Game Pass, which will indefinitely get you a ton of subscribers, they will do it. So the gloves are going to definitely come off. There's going to be money spent here. It's just about when it's going to be spent and how it's going to be spent.
Would you guys mind if I address the whole FTC lying thing real quick?
Go for it.
It's like the only thing I really want to add to this whole conversation.
I welcome it. Yeah, it's good.
Because
that was pretty shitty too.
I'd like to objectively say that this is an objective fact. The FTC did not lie. Mischaracterized happenings, yes. But they did not lie that Microsoft, during the investigation to the European Commission, did in fact say that they have zero reason to foreclose any content past, present, or future. They did say that.
They said past, they said future.
Yeah, well, so they said all content input stream, which would imply future content. They did not say the word future. They said it in business terms. That future I think it was downstream input is the business term. But they objectively did say they have no reason to foreclose the content. The European Commission came around and said, fine, whatever, but even if you did it, it wouldn't matter. Right? That's what they said. And the overall thing that the merger agreement that was later, after this, that was signed in January 31st, 2021. I've read like 400 pages of legal documents this last week, and I want to die. But in the actual merger agreement, Microsoft's stance had changed from what they told the EC to it will be on a case-by-case basis, and the EC accepted that change, right? So to say that Microsoft said one thing to the EC, then did another, is mischaracterizing what Microsoft did, because the European Commission, I'm just going to call them the EC for tonight, they accepted the changes that were made. And one of the things that that Microsoft said in that actual signed agreement to the European Commission was that everything would be done on a case-by-case basis, that they'd be looking at the abbreviated version that Microsoft put in their fact sheet, which is what I'll go over. They said that it would involve like their strategic plans as a company and player sentiment, and they'd be looking at different aspects about the games themselves to determine where they would go. I genuinely believe that shows like our own and the talk online and everything actually changed their business model in this case. I genuinely believe that. I think going into this acquisition, Microsoft fully planned to have everything on every system. I think that from day one, they originally had planned to just release Starfield as a multi-plat. I think that was their plan. Just looking at their argument making that they made to the European Commission, and then where it ended up in the end, it almost looks like the actual player sentiment was basically like, no, you motherfuckers, you need more exclusives, you dumbasses. And it ultimately changed the course of that argumentation progress, and it ended up in this case-by-case basis. And that would be the easiest argument that Microsoft could make as to why they had, they said that there is no business model where it makes sense to foreclose this content, right? To this agreement later that it'll be on a case-by-case basis, and the only two actions we've actually seen out of ZeniMax so far are two exclusive titles, right? We've seen, I mean, they kept their promises with Deathloop and Ghostwire Tokyo. That's not what I'm talking about, right? The new announcements that have come out of them have been two exclusive titles on that case-by-case basis. I actually do think that the general consensus around the community is why they decided to do that, and I think that's also why Call of Duty is going to be a multi-platform regardless of anything. I mean, financially, it would be death to that franchise financially to pull it from other things, but just looking at player sentiment about it, like, even us, the best that we could get is, okay, well, maybe they'll make the campaigns exclusive. That's like the furthest our show even took it, right? But everyone was basically like, yeah, that multiplayer is always going to be everywhere because, like, look at it, look at what it is. And so they're making the same argument that there is no reason to pull Call of Duty content from any platform, and the FTC is arguing, well, they could flip-flop that, and it's like, well, no one has determined whether or not, we haven't seen any actual decisions, right? Because we're still waiting on all of the round twos to come back. Technically, the FTC's had their round two come back, and they lobbied to sue, and they said that it would be a foreclosure, and they said that if a foreclosure was to happen, and they say that Microsoft has reasons to, but if the foreclosure was to happen, that it would be damaging to their only upstream competitor in this case, and so, but their argument stems from Microsoft having a reason to foreclose, stems from this fact that they did flip-flop with the EC, but the EC basically gave them permission to flip-flop, and there are reasons that you can point to as to why they may have legitimately changed their decision. In this case, we've already seen them sign legal agreements with Nintendo, which was shocking. We didn't cover that last week. That happened this week, right? This week's been a blur. That they signed the legal agreement with Nintendo and Steam. So we already have legal bases that for at least the next decade, they're gonna, Call of Duty's going to be everywhere. Right?
Yeah, well, they're laying the groundwork. They're laying the groundwork for everything.
So it's really hard to say that they're going to flip flop here because they have already put out binding agreements contingent. Now, these are binding agreements contingent on the deal passing, right? So it's not technically a binding agreement until the deal passes. But if the deal passes, it's binding, right? They do have to abide by what they said to Nintendo. That game will come to Nintendo in one shape or form. I'm going to tell you it's going to be cloud. Because they outright said it would be the same games on Xbox and PlayStation that would be on Switch. So it's going to be a cloud version, at least until Switch 2 comes out. But so the FTC's argument that Microsoft flip-flopped isn't a lie, but it does mischaracterize what happened. That essentially the European Commission implicitly said, "Yeah, do whatever. We don't fucking care if you do it. If you were to foreclose, it's fine. With Bethesda, it wouldn't hurt anything." And this also brings, I honestly think that we may see ZeniMax Online's next game announced early at this showcase in January, and see it announced as a multi-platform case, because then they can go see. We said that we were going to be on a case-by-case basis, and this multi-platform MMO is going to be everywhere. We're announcing this as it's going to be everywhere because it makes sense to have all of them multiplayer gamers playing together, no matter what system that they are. And we're even gonna we're announcing it for the Switch right now, but it's not gonna come day and date because we don't have plans on how to get it on there. I like that in my mind is the messaging that they go with, right? Is that they show that, look, we are looking at this on a case-by-case basis, and I've been of the opinion that ZeniMax MMO was going to be multi-platform 50-50 chance since since like I
ZeniMax
heard
is
them.
also getting ready to do their announcement for the continuation of Elder Scrolls. It takes place at the end of almost every January, where
Yeah,
they announce the next
exactly.
expansion.
So I wouldn't be shocked to hear that, we hear about ZeniMax Online Studios game sooner rather than later, and we hear that, oh, it's planned to go everywhere because that's what makes sense for the multiplayer game, right? And then they can show that they are keeping that case-by-case promise by actually showing a different case than they have already. And some people are going to get mad because, oh, they own that and it's exclusive. And I'm like, yeah, well, I honestly think that even if even if it hadn't been like in this hypothetical, right? Even if it hadn't been a hypothetical against the FTC, I still really think that having read those case by case terms that they like outlined for like why games could go multi-platform, I really think that MMO had a very strong shot of actually being a multi-platform game, because I think Microsoft is when we heard that it was going to be on a case by case basis, I truly think that they are looking at the ZeniMax titles on a case-by-case basis to try and determine where to put them. Because, I mean, you look at ZeniMax Online Studios' last game, ESO, Centurion's, like, favorite game ever. Is it your favorite game? I think it's your favorite game. You play it so
Definitely
much.
say I have probably put more in... I put a shitload of time in that game. I think, like, my timer's at, like, over... there's a lot of days. My timer's broke on that game. We'll just say
Revenue-wise, it hasn't left Steam's top 100 since it came out. Since before it came out, actually. Like, since pre-orders were available.
Huh.
And I have a feeling that's probably also true on the, because we only really see the top 10s normally. Steam is the only thing that like was really open to us and lets us see everything in like a nice order, like in real time, right? Like Steam does that and it's awesome. I wish Xbox, PlayStation, and Nintendo did that too, but that would there's Steam, it's become like a part of the culture. For them, it would probably be actually detrimental to like how they operate. But I wouldn't be shocked to hear that something is similar with that game also on Xbox and PlayStation. Why? Because it's a massive multiplayer game with a reoccurring revenue, right? That's what it is. And those kind of games thrive physically the more players you can shove in them, right? Like I don't think I don't think it's shocking to say that a multiplayer game does better the more players the multiplayer game has. Like it's not a very shocking concept. It's a concept that Microsoft's abided by with Minecraft. Even PlayStation's abided by with MLB The Show. They'd rather have it everywhere than give it up. And with Destiny, they've said that Bungie is going to be releasing shit everywhere that they want to release it because it just makes sense with multiplayer games. And so I wouldn't be shocked to hear them brag and parade with ZeniMax Online Studios being a multi-platform MMO. And showing like, look, we keep our commitments, and that's what we actually committed to the EC. And I honestly also expect to hear in court them explain their way out of saying that they had no reason to going to, okay, we have a case-by-case reason. And there are reasons that they could shift that stance, and the EC gave them the ability to shift that stance by saying that the foreclosure wouldn't matter, right? And so it's really a weak argument to say that Microsoft doesn't keep its word when it gave its word and then changed it to the EC, but the EC didn't care. Does that make sense? Like, they didn't care. They accepted those terms. And so I find it really, really, really... The FTC's case is water thin. Now, that being said, it will empower the CMA and the EC to take a hardline stance. And if two of them do, the deal is done. Expect Microsoft to back out. If the CMA moves to block the deal, expect Microsoft to block out. I'm just saying that now, right? Now, if the CMA and the EC side in Microsoft's favor, and two of them side in favor of it, that almost completely destroys the FTC argument. Because that's basically the rest of the world saying, nah, fam. They good, right? They gave us all these concessions. We're okay with these concessions. It's not a problem, right? And that's why with the regulators, like the FTC is kind of the weakest one, right? And that's kind of why they're moving to do this, because they want more power. But if the EC and the CMA, who are the ones who have the more hardline stance in general, just in these regulatory committees, if they end up saying, yeah, it's fine, the FTC will throw their case out and they will accept whatever concessions that have appeared in the EC and the CMA's case. Maybe they'll ask for something else, like some kind of oversight or something like that, right? But I I don't see see this moving forward if those two say it's okay to move forward. I see this falling out if two of them do, or if Microsoft shareholders say that paying 2.5 billion or two right now would only be $2 billion if they were to drop out, right? And so there comes a point where it's like, okay, is it worth dropping out for $2 billion right now, having all that money on hand and spending it on other things, or having it all tied up, moving until it's $2.5 billion, which happens later this summer, or are you willing to go the whole way out to that $3 billion mark and maybe even further when you have to renegotiate the terms of the merger agreement? And so expect a lot of emergency Microsoft shareholder meetings for throughout the course of this next year, because they're gonna periodically vote to determine whether or not they think they should pull out or not, and it's going to come down to is $2 billion too much to spend, or is that okay to to spend right now to get out? Should we wait until it's 2.5? And so just expect that, right? Because those are the two cases that Microsoft pulls out, right? They pull out of this deal if two regulators try to fight them, and they pull out if their shareholders say that they're done. Because you can't fight the shareholders. It's not an emergency CMA meeting next week. It's an emergency Microsoft board meeting next week. Not board meeting. I'm sorry. Shareholder meeting. Not just the board.
I think that they're meeting with. I think
they are meeting with the CMA next week. That's not an emergency meeting, though. That's scheduled.
Right.
I'm fairly certain. But Microsoft did send out emails for an emergency shareholder meeting.
Right. Yeah.
So,
I don't think.
I don't think they back out this week yet.
Yeah. I don't think they're going to back out. I do think if EU, like you said, if one of the guys do it, they're going to back out, in my opinion.
And so right now, if you were to, because everyone loves the percentages. Right now, if you were to ask me a percentage of this going through, I'd give you 30-70. Right? That's where I'm at right now, just because of how hardline the CMA and EC have. And that's just going off the current data. We don't have the current thinkings of inside the EC and inside the CMA right now. The only thing we really have from them that's recent, like really recent, because like they put out those documents a couple weeks ago, but those documents were from October, right? So the only thing that we have is really recent was the EC firing back in the FTC and saying, well, this is what actually happened and we were okay with it, right? Like, and so they didn't really, the EC just didn't want itself to be mischaracterized, right, as doing something stupid, because that would make them look like a stupid regulatory agency, and they don't want that. And so we don't really have any insight into what they're doing. And so it's really hard to give it any more than 30-70 when in reality, it's probably closer to 50-50. It's just hard to say what those two regulatory bodies are actually thinking, because they're not quite as politicized.
Now, I mean, you did a pretty good job there, Crusader, of really going over again, the severity of the matter, and just the different bodies, the different boards, and so on. Again, lots of information floating around there, and a lot of it gets confusing. I know for myself, sometimes a lot of this information, it's like, again, it's hard to digest some of it sometimes, because there's so much of it now over the past, it's close to a year now since this deal was announced. So, in another month's time, right? So, it just it really drains you.
It does.
Now, right. Now, MLD pal, what do you think about all this? I mean, Crusader did a pretty good job of rounding things up there, but this whole FTC thing, what's your thoughts on it? Like, again, it's been a very eye-opening experience, to say the least. Lots of information coming out. I don't know. What do you think of the FTC? Again, just come out trying to block the deal.
Well, I know one thing, Xbox, I don't think they're going to go for another public company ever again. I think going private is just a lot easier and less red tape, that's for sure. Also, it was mentioned before, it's odd that an American regulator is preventing an American company from competing in an industry dominated by international brands. Like, being from Canada, that just perplexes me. But I guess it's ideological. It goes beyond reason and facts. It just because Microsoft bad basically is their logic. But because you look at the facts here, Xbox, they have a pro-union stance. on Raven Studios. They're pro workers. They'll have a better workplace culture. Their HR is definitely going to improve once under Xbox. They're pro consumer with Game Pass additions, and they're going to have more platform availability. Like, yeah, again, they signed they committed to an agreement with Nintendo. They committed to an agreement with Steam, and Steam said they're not even going to sign an agreement because they just trust Xbox. Like, and Steam has no horse in this race, and that's a pretty glowing endorsement there. But again, I think it's tone deaf to the gaming industry. I think they just want to show that they're making an effort to stop big tech from consolidating. But Xbox is far from the market leader. They're ironically protecting the market leader, PlayStation, that charged $70 from the start of the generation, doesn't do day one games on their service. So they're clearly a brand that is taking advantage of their position and charging their gamers because they know they can get away with it. And Xbox, they've been competing in different ways to stay relevant. And it's almost like they're getting punished for it because they have a successful parent company. That to me, that just makes no sense. In terms of the EU, disputing the FTC complaint, their argument. I think we can all agree that it is vague, and I think Xbox can use that to their advantage. See, the part that I read that was there's no incentive for Xbox to keep content or whatnot. I personally, it's my opinion, I personally believe they can argue that just applied to games currently out, not necessarily pertaining to future releases. Just they have no incentive to take games like Fallout 76 or Elder Scrolls Online. They have no incentive to take them just off the PlayStation Marketplace. But alas, even if that is arguable, the EU still said that no conditions. Xbox, you guys can do whatever you want. So there was no incentive to make a firm commitment. But here, they are making firm commitments. They're not going to say forever and ever, but they say, hey, 10-year contracts with the option to renew at the end of the 10 years. That's a pretty major difference that Xbox they're actually saying that they're making a real commitment as opposed to like the EU situation with Bethesda. So it's just really weird, but overall it just sucks for gamers, for Xbox fans that we got to wait. We thought this would be done by end of June. Now that this doesn't look like that'll be the case because these court things you never really know. It halts Xbox plans for the future because we all know that Xbox, they said that they're not done acquiring studios after this is over. But all those plans are on hold so long as this thing is still going. So whatever grand master plan Xbox has for the generation, it's just going to take that much longer for them to, see it through. So that's unfortunate. Like I was looking forward to a massive Game Pass drop come E3, but it looks like we might have to wait till, later in the year. But in the end, Sony, they clearly burned their bridges with Microsoft and Activision for that matter. I think we're going to see a different Xbox going forward with how they do business with PlayStation. Either way, whether this goes through or not, I think it's like they made it personal to a degree. So I think the Xbox has a strong case to make because again, a lot of the things with EU with Bethesda do not apply here. And you cannot punish Xbox because Microsoft is successful. This is about the gaming industry. And ironically, they are protecting the market leader and keeping actually Xbox is the underdog brand despite their parent company. They're preventing them from evening it all out. Better competition. So I'm confident they'll still go through, but it just sucks to wait. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree. Well said there, MLD. Lots of good points.
The August thing in chat.
Yeah.
The August thing, the actual date when they're supposed to be in court with the FTC, like the actual trial, like the full trial is supposed to happen in August. Yes. Just that's an FYI. The discovery and everything, like there's going to be all kinds of shit show for it before that because there'll be discovery of evidence and stuff like that before that, and there'll be pre-trial motions and things like that. It doesn't mean that it'll actually go the whole way to August. It could go longer than August, but that's what the August thing is in chat.
Yeah. Now, Centurion, I know you had touched on it earlier, but you got anything else to say regarding this, again, the whole situation with the FTC kind of chiming in here on the Activision buyout? Again, like, what else do you have to add to this? Any other comments?
Well, everybody here says they can't understand why the FTC is doing this, and like Tim Dog said earlier, it's politics.
It's politics, yeah.
Well, it's because the FTC has had to follow a system of procedures and guidelines for a long time now that was basically set with a Supreme Court precedence, where I forget which document it was that basically that kind of said what the FTC can and can't do. Well, apparently because of Chairman Khan, the administration that's in charge in my country right now, and the fact that they want to tackle big tech, they went through this document that outlines how they're supposed to do their powers, and they have somehow loopholed and twisted words, kind of like what they did with what the EC and Microsoft's discussion. They somehow tried to misinterpret or twist the words. And that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to basically say that they don't have to always protect the consumer. They also can look out for competition and challenge companies for doing this, that, and the other. Like, there's a lot of stuff in there that I'm still trying to understand myself. But as Crusader alluded to in August, that this is supposed to go to a what they call an administrative court.
Yep.
So the FTC right now does not want this to go before a federal judge, because a federal judge is not on the payroll of the FTC. The administrative judge for this administrative proceeding in August is on the FTC payroll. He's very fluent in FTC law. He has in the past ruled against the FTC. But at the end of the day, this dude is on the FTC payroll. Now, right now, Hogue Law brought this up in his big old almost 3-hour thing that I listened to, where he went over the whole document. So right now, early in I want to say probably somewhere in the beginning of Q2 of 2023, the Supreme Court is actually going to decide on the FTC's new direction of how they're trying to use these new powers that they found supposedly in this document that they've never had before and essentially pulled out of their ass.
Well,
and that's
it's
where
not so much that it's their administrative court in general is what the case.
Yes,
the Axon versus the FTC.
Right,
and
Axon
it's been
versus
going
the
since
FTC.
The early 2016, 2018
right.
for
and
Axon.
This is where I think Microsoft, as long as the CMA, like you said, the CMA and the EC don't rule on do their stuff beforehand, or if they do vote and help Microsoft out, this is where the Supreme Court, as where it's saying, like through Holland and Knight and other places, Supreme Court to review the structure of the FTC's proceedings and procedures. The concept of this ruling is to see that the FTC does not have the power to basically hold this up in an administrative court. Axion wants their case to be seen in a federal court away from an FTC employee or the judge, and they want to go directly to a federal judge who is basically neutral, away from the FTC, and has nothing to gain or lose from the FTC. If by some chance the Supreme Court votes that Axion has this right, Microsoft will also have the same right, and in which case their lawyers will be able to say, middle finger up in the air, F you, we are not going to your stupid administrative court. We are going straight to a federal judge that has neutrality to this whole situation, and he will look at it by the rules of the law, which are protect the consumer, not the competitor. And that is one thing I'm really going to be interested in watching unfold over time, is how the Supreme Court is going to basically rule against Axion versus the FTC, because this directly will influence the direction that Microsoft is going to take in dealing with the FTC in the long run. So there's a lot of stuff that's going to unfold. Like I said, like at the beginning of all this in January, this is going to be a roller coaster of a ride. This has turned out to be more of a shit show than I ever thought it could be, in my opinion. I never thought we would see Sony go down the path they did. I never thought I'd see the regulators have this much hem-hawing about it and back and forth about what to do. I think it's absolutely BS that they want to basically play that, you know, oh, we're dealing with Microsoft from the early 2000s, the evil corporation. Yeah, I know it's a big corporation, big business, whatever. Corporations run the entire world. I understand that argument, but I also would like to think that the corporation that was back then was under different leadership and had a different direction. And we're also talking about video games, for God's sakes. And I just don't like the train of thought that the FTC has gone down in their document with the idea between a casual gamer and a serious gamer, and how somehow Nintendo is a non-player in the industry, and that basically we got to pretend that they don't exist, and this is purely between Xbox versus PlayStation. The gaming industry is bigger than Xbox versus PlayStation, and I do not understand why the FTC is trying to hold this argument that somehow, like, basically they are the gaming industry. Yeah, like, I'm over talking about the Activision thing, because, like, literally I never thought that it would literally turn into this big of a circus. At this point, I'm just ready to sit back, watch what unfolds, learn a little bit about how regulators around the world work, and you know, I look forward to whatever's going to happen, whether Microsoft acquires Activision and we're going to have a lot of great titles come into Game Pass and see a different complete Microsoft than we've seen in the past, or we're going to get a completely more aggressive Microsoft that's going to have, let me see, like the deal was like roughly over $69 billion. If they got to shell out that $3 billion price tag, that still leaves $66 billion in a bank account that was meant to grow the Xbox franchise, the Xbox division. And they're not just going to say, all right, put that $66 billion back in the coffers over at Microsoft. That money's intent was to grow Xbox, and they are going to do it aggressively, and they are going to money hat, and they are going to completely show PlayStation to put their money where their mouth is, because I'm saying right now, Sony has burned a lot of bridges during this whole freaking circus. They have come out and insulted EA. Oh, Battlefield can't hold a flame to Call of Duty. Your game ain't shit. Like, straight up, like, how would you feel if you're one of the CEOs over at Activision and you just got told that somebody you do a lot of business with just said that your games are crap? You know, it would be like, screw you, man. Same with Activision. You think Activision's going to be happy with Sony? Oh, like, oh, hey, thanks for costing us $60 billion. Let's go have dinner. No, they're going to literally freaking probably kind of, I really do think that Sony has completely exercised themselves from the gaming industry as a whole, and that literally there's going to be a lot of players in the gaming industry that are not going to really want to play the games that Sony has been playing, because they know Sony likes to play dirty. And at this point in time, Microsoft has a lot of money on the table, and they're all going to want some of that money, and they know Microsoft is going to be looking to spend it, and Sony's going to find out real quick that loyalty don't mean crap.
I definitely see that PlayStation will almost certainly not have marketing rights for Call of Duty after this.
Oh, dude, for real. I
don't see it happening.
Big time.
Oh, dude, I mean it. Yeah, it's just like, so you just came out and insulted numerous people. You've been caught insulting indie game developers. You've been caught insulting big corporation developers. It's just like, who the F do you think you are? Just because you're PlayStation doesn't mean nothing, man. The king can fall off the mountain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, you're right. Absolutely right there, Centurion. And honestly, great input on your part.
I want to say one thing about the Axon thing before they're not. The case is not going before the Supreme Court so that they have the decision to go to a federal judge. The case is actually harder than that on the FTC. It's actually saying whether or not they have the right to use an administrative judge, whether or not they can even have an administrative court in the first place.
Right, because it makes it very hard to appeal.
Yes, because it makes the appeal process really long, and they don't have the quote due process.
Right, because Hogue Law made the biggest joke.
Yeah.
He's like, if the administrative judge rules in favor of the FTC, and you try to appeal it, it makes it harder. And then also, if the FTC judge rules in favor for the other person against the FTC can basically, well, we're going to appeal our own decision because we think we're right.
Now, note, this is the last chance for Microsoft, by the way. This Supreme Court decision. This will come almost certainly after the CMA and EC come back. Because
I think, what is it? The March is for the CMA?
So March-ish and April is the time period for both of them.
Yeah, because I think the Supreme Court ruling for Axion is somewhere in June?
Almost. So they usually do major cases like this during the summer months, during the early summer months. Look back to when the cases came back this summer. We're not getting into the politics.
Oh yeah,
there was a major case that came back during the summer this year, and you can look towards it about the time that one came out, or maybe a little bit before. So late May through like July would be when they would see those cases. Now, nothing says they can't say anything about it sooner. Nothing, right? They could hold a session and they could review it tonight if they wanted to, right?
Right.
Now it's not going to happen tonight because they actually have to have the lawyers get up in front of them and make their arguments and everything, and then they will go back and wait a few months while they review the case over and over and over again to come to their decisions, because that's how the Supreme Court works. This is a last-ditch effort. If this was to matter, right? This would be Microsoft really not wanting to give up, right?
Well,
if this actually mattered for them.
If the CMA and the EC do come out, and because that's what's weird about this whole situation is we're over here playing games like, well, what if Microsoft does this? What if Microsoft does that? Can we trust them? Dude, that's what a concession is for.
Yeah.
You're supposed to get it on paper. Why aren't we going down this road?
Historically, even into the 90s and 80s, the FTC has never actually liked what are called behavioral concessions, which are, we agree we won't do this, we agree we won't do that. They are more of a fan of divestitures and like oversight committees and things like that, looking over them. So what's called a behavioral concession, which would be Microsoft agrees to do something for so many years, just flat out. That's what's a behavioral concession. And the FTC has never been a fan of those kinds of concessions, especially the current regime. So I'm not sure how much that's actually going to matter to them. It may matter to the judge, but the actual committee, it's like the panel, it's not going to matter to. What would matter is agreeing to have a independent auditor or things like that.
I just think it's funny how they're trying to be like, Microsoft can't be trusted, and then Steam comes out and is like, oh yeah, we trust them. They've done everything they've ever said. They are completely trustworthy because they have done everything that they said that they would do for us.
Well, and people are saying that like, oh, they didn't have an injunction, right? Because there's no injunction to block this deal in federal court. And the reason for that is the FTC doesn't need to at the current time. Because now, if they actually had to issue
they're not trying to close the deal. That's why.
Well, and they can't, because the merger agreement specifically says there can't be ongoing litigation about the merger.
Right.
The companies themselves can have ongoing litigation in their sections, because Activision has like 800 ongoing suits against them.
The only way that they can do an injunction is if Microsoft and Activision start trying to close the deal without approval. And that's the only way that triggers an injunction. So right now, the only thing the FTC can do
they can file an injunction right now. They just don't need to, because in the merger agreement it says that they won't close if there is ongoing litigation. If now that merger agreement can be changed, the two companies' board of directors could meet together and they could change those rules. They could change the terms of the merger agreement. They can do that at any time if they want to, right? And that's what would happen if they had to divest, like say that the deal can only go through if they divest Activision, but the Blizzard and King can be purchased, right? Like let's just say in an imaginary world, they would go together and they would rewrite the terms of the deals. They'd reallocate the money, how much money it's actually going to be with the divestiture, counted in and things like that. and that could happen, and then they could also alter the agreement to say, oh hey, even if we have litigation going on, we'll finalize the case. And if they were to change that and release the new merger agreement with that change in mind, I guarantee the FTC would be now the FTC would have to determine, do we want to push for an injunction? Because if they push for an injunction, the case is going to go to a federal court, period. Right? That happens. If they
I still question whether Call of Duty could even function if they're asking for divestiture and
I agree.
And it's just like, do you really think that Call of Duty as a standalone developer or how company, whatever you want to call it, if they have to do a divestiture, do you think they would even be able to survive long term without the actual funding of the entire ABK monster?
I'm see, that's where I'm not so sure that they would need because like the problem is, could they afford to keep development up today without like a banking? Because like they definitely bring in more, like they have a good profit margin, correct? Like I don't know, like Call of Duty makes money. It makes a lot of money, like in profit, not just like in revenue, right? Because revenue doesn't take into account your expenses. But Call of Duty is very profitable on its own, and those studios could exist on their own in theory. In practice, they're not going to have like an actual like bank to sit upon. They would have to take out loans for their first few years, right? And so that's the thing. Can they take out enough loans to actually fund the studios to a point where they can get themselves up and running long term enough?
That's one thing I'm wondering is how many studios would be part of that divestiture, because it would be
anything under the Activision subsidiary. So it would be everything everything that's not under Blizzard and everything that's not under King would be the divestiture.
Because I was gonna say like literally Call of Duty is absorbed almost every developer under the Activision banner.
Well,
they aren't really working on much of anything other than Call of Duty and some other titles here and there, but it's like Call of Duty is like pretty much absorbing a lot of what they do.
And that's the thing. They're never going to ask for like to divest Call of Duty, right? They're going to ask to divest one of the three names under Activision-Blizzard-King. And the only one that they could reasonably ask to be divested based on the actual market share that the company has and the arguments that they're making would be Activision proper, right? That being said, that divestiture could get more complicated because they could argue that, okay, but we want to keep the minor IPs or stuff like that. Like we want to keep the Crash Bandicoots and the Spyros and stuff, and like we want as part of this divestiture agreement, we'd want to take all the IPs. Now, I don't. This is a hypothetical. I'd like to say that I don't actually think that this would happen. I don't think Microsoft would agree to it in any world, right? This is to me, this is an all or nothing kind of thing. Maybe they walk away happy with King. Right? And by happy, I don't mean happy. They walk away without paying $3 billion for nothing.
Well, again, they purposely went into it, talking to Activision when they were at like a stock low point, right? Like, they were purposely buying them. And again, I say this with a smile on my face for the cheap, right? Like 80, however much it was.
And I don't believe there would be I don't believe Microsoft would agree to a divestiture, right? This is just a hypothetical that, like, that's the kind of thing that the FTC actually likes when it comes to concessions. We saw that with Disney, right? That when Disney tried to buy 20th Century Fox, they actually had to divest Fox Sports. Maybe
Disney
the news
owned
as well?
ESPN.
Yeah, because Disney owns ESPN, and that would literally control like 40 to somewhere between 35 and 50% of the sports market in America. Not all of it, right? Because CBS has some sports stuff. ABC has some sports. Well, actually, ABC is.
The funny part is you bring that up. Like the Brazilian authorities, Cade, were the one that really kind of brought that into the limelight, because even Cade had an issue with it over in Brazil.
Yeah, well, and the same thing was true. Like, those were just the concessions that were made. Like the biggest power play that the regulators have made, and I don't know why they don't brag about it more, was blocking the deal. Like literally everyone kind of simultaneously together sued to block the NVIDIA ARM deal, which that needed blocked. That would actually be like 65% of the microprocessor market under NVIDIA. That would have been awful for like everyone involved. That was actually like even a national security concern for countries, because like so many like processing components would be made by one company that like if they were to ever go rogue, they could actually endanger the national
Right.
security of multiple countries. This isn't that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you know, like that, there was absolutely zero concessions accepted by literally anyone. They said no, because NVIDIA tried with behavioral concessions, right? That they would open source patents and stuff like that, and every regulator said no to it. That behavioral concessions weren't good enough, and there's no divestiture that you could actually give in this case.
Mm-hmm.
So they said no.
Well,
and so
yeah,
we won't know until this is actually where the talking about it gets so much more interesting, though, because it's not just the same bullshit reiterated. We actually have news now, right? Even before the FTC moved to block, this was the most interesting week for news in this deal that we've had with the whole Nintendo and Steam stuff.
Yeah.
It's so super interesting. So
yeah, again, guys, like either way, time will tell. Like we're gonna be hearing more and more things as time goes on. We'll see how long this sucker gets dragged out for, but judging from our conversation here, yeah, we're still gonna be talking about it for a while, unfortunately. But yeah, exactly, right. But that's just how it is. Yeah, okay, guys, I think with that, we'll move on to our next topic, to our last talking point of the night, really. And we'll just touch on it a bit, discuss the Callisto Protocol, the new horror game that came out, well, last week, I believe. And a few of the team members here, a few of the cast members have had a chance to play it, so we'll get our thoughts on it. It comes from the team, or a few key members of the team behind Dead Space. I'm interested in getting it. Maybe I'll pick it up around Christmas time. But yeah, I want to hear the thoughts and opinions from the panel. Centurion, my fellow game junkie, I know you've been playing it. I think you beat it, in fact. What's your thoughts on the game, and is this worth picking up?
Man, you had to throw that question at me. Is this game worth picking up? So before we get into it, I really wanted to support this developer. They used to, a good majority of them used to work for Visceral Games before EA shut them down, and they got together. Some of them got together and created Striking Distance, and they obviously published this game under Krafton to get Callisto Protocol out. There is a lot of Dead Space mechanics and the look of Dead Space and function there. I mean, like having the HUD on the back of the, instead of on the back of the head, it's on the back of the neck. There was not a heavy emphasis on guns. There is guns in the game, but they are definitely there as more of a backup, or a like a combination of melee and guns. It's not just run around and shoot them. When you say, is this game worth picking up? If you really love horror games and you're into games that have like a strategy to how the fighting mechanic works, this is definitely a game for you. The story was okay. Wilmy Hood gave the game, when we chatted about it, a 9. I'm more of an 8, but that's because I did have some issues when it came to how the game functioned. Hit registration was off in some instances, where you would hit the dodge and the character would not dodge, and when you're fighting like the boss characters, it's one hit kill. If they touch you, you're dead. And when you have a mechanic that unforgiving and the dodge doesn't work the way it's supposed to, it really screws it up. And then there was instances where you have to break the boss down with your gun and then get in with the melee weapon and start bashing on them. And there was some hit registration issues. Like it was not registering that I was swinging the melee weapon on them. I do believe those are probably going to get patched out, but but it does seem that Wilmy Hood ran into some of the same issues as I did. But the game has a very interesting fighting style. I know a lot of people wanted it to be like Dead Space, but as we've chatted in this one, in this the chat for TXR, EA is one of those companies that actually do patent game mechanics. I don't know if Dead Space was under one of those patents where the concept of Dead Space is exclusive to Dead Space for so many years. That's why I think that they possibly went down a different road of having a different mechanic altogether, because the way it works is it's a melee style fighting mechanic. You have the left joystick is the dodge, and the minute you see the enemy try to swing at you, you got to hit either left or right first. It doesn't matter what your first is, and the character will dodge. But if you go left first, then you have to swing to the right for the second dodge. If you don't get the left right combo going very well, it will knock you out of the combo. And dude, damage gets dealt heavily in that game. I had a lot of fun playing it. The story was great. The game is graphically awesome. I didn't have ray tracing issues. I didn't have stuttering. I played it on a Series X. It was definitely a fun experience. I did roll the credits on the game. No, I didn't play it on easy. I played it on medium. There was a few times I thought about toggling it down to easy, but I stuck with it. But I like one fight alone, the end boss, I have probably an hour and a half in doing the same fight over and over again to get that muscle memory and the fighting mechanic down. And yeah, I mean, like, it can definitely kick your ass. That is for sure.
All right. Good to know. Good to know. That's interesting because, again, I've seen a lot of varying opinions on the game, and I believe on the panel we have another person who played it. MLD, you spent some time with it. I'm not sure if you beat it, but let us know what you thought of it.
Actually, no, I changed my mind on the subject ever since the the reviews went out and people had impressions. I decided to wait for a sale, to be honest with you guys.
Oh, okay.
All right. I was so stoked to play this game. Like, the creators of Dead Space. Dead Space is one of my favorite games of all time. I had got the full 1,000 achievements for it. Dead Space 2 and 3 almost perfection, but not quite. But then you see, like, the dodge mechanic is so, like, iffy, and it's a emphasis on melee, but I love Dead Space for its ranged combat options. I don't want to be whacking people like 80% of the time. So I get it. It's a different game. At the same time, they kind of want to leave their own mark. EA probably has their own patents at the same time. But then you also hear that, the Xbox version was kind of like at a disadvantage performance-wise compared to PlayStation version. And that just kind of rubbed me the wrong way too. So I think I'm just gonna, wait for like a post-Christmas sale and just beat it before the Dead Space remake comes out. So that's where I stand. I'm sure it's a good game for what it is, but I guess I expected something different before the reviews came out. And now that I did some, you do a little bit of research and whatnot. Yeah, you put your expectations in check, and I'll just when I go into it, I'll keep that in mind. That's all.
All right, fair. I totally thought you had played it, but I know that you were really looking forward to it. So no, I'm there with you. I want to just wait a little bit. I am kind of tempted to get around Christmas time, but no, I'm kind of wondering. I see this, and then I see what they're doing with the Dead Space remake, and I'm like, they're so close together. Which one do I want to put time into? Do I wait a bit? Go for a sale? It's tough. It's tough decisions, right? Crusader, I mean, I don't know. Do you have any interest in Callisto Protocol at all?
I did for a while until I found out the first 5 hours are melee combat focused, and then I died inside.
Yep, pretty much.
That seems to be the big make or break.
I really like Dead Space a lot. Like, I played it for the first time, I think it was this year. Technically, it might have been last year. I don't know. Within the last 18 months, I played all 3 Dead Spaces. Let's put it that way, right? I think it was all this year. But I was a big fan of... in most video games, I'm a big fan of ranged combat, right? If I'm playing a melee combat-focused game, it needs to be really aggressive. Like, God of War is a very aggressive melee combat game, right? Like, I don't think that that's deniable. Whereas some of the the Souls likes, a lot of them are very slow and methodical, or like they're not even necessarily slow, but they're very methodical. So you have to like wait for the right minute to strike. Whereas it's not as like if I'm doing melee, I like real hack and slash. With gunplay, I love ranged games. I could play anything from slow and methodical to super fast paced like Doom. And hearing that the first like 5 hours of the like 8 to 12 hour game was primarily melee combat focused, and even then, like, it is still kind of avoidable or like move past a lot of the enemies and things like that. That just, I don't know. I'll try it at some point, but it does not sound like a very Crusader style game. Whereas, like the Dead Space remake, I know what to expect with Dead Space because I just played it recently, and it's not that, right? The most you do with the melee is you stomp on the thing when it gets close to you. You know what I mean? Like it's a primary function to get ammo and stuff like that, but you're not super reliant on melee to actually kill the enemies. Does that make sense? Like I'm not. It's just it doesn't seem like a game that was made for Crusader, and I thought it was going to be. I really thought it was going to be a game made for me because I really liked. I like having played Dead Space for the first time this year. I was like, oh my god,
Right.
I love this. This stuff's great, and I really thought Callisto would be the thing for me. Now maybe I know they have lots of DLCs and expansions and stuff planned. Maybe some of that content, they is more gunplay focused, and I can get past that that melee focus. But right now, it just does not look like something that I really want to dive into. Visually, it looks great. I know Xbox had a lot of performance issues and stuff. Our RTR was accidentally turned off because they were using the Series S profile partially, like some of the configuration for the Series S profile. There's actually a couple other things that are missing as well that have the Series S stuff turned on, from what I understand. So it's not like they just didn't have it. They accidentally deployed parts of the wrong config, which they also deployed parts of the wrong config on PC. Did anyone see how bad it was stuttering on PC the first couple
I
days?
saw that.
Like, realistically, a non-playable game, because from what I understand, if anyone knows anything about like rendering, they Unreal in general has this issue with shader compilation, where like a lot of games will stutter for the first little bit while you're playing them on PC. And part of the reason, from what I understand as to what was going on, is that the shaders never actually like finished like caching, and it just would keep trying to build the shaders over and over again, and so you never got past that stutter ending and getting to a point where the game was stable. And they fixed that within, I think it was like 28 hours, which is good for them. I hear it, like most Unreal games, it still has stuttering issues though, because no one wants to pre-cache all the shaders for whatever reason. I don't know why. You can do it. Some devs do it. Epic does it themselves. Like one or two other devs do it, but a lot of devs just don't take the time. And that brings me to my overarching complaint, is that too many developers aren't focusing on optimization. I'm not going to call them lazy, because it's not really the developers' fault, like themselves, right? It is more on the publishers that want their deadlines and want their product to hit the market on X date. And with Callisto, you can guarantee they wanted that game to hit before Christmas.
Right before Dead Space too.
You can tell that they moved it as far as they could before Christmas, but Kraft didn't want it out before Christmas. And that's why I say, I would argue to everyone, there's like almost no cases where you could yell lazy dev. That's just don't. You want to say something of that like line and say like the devs shouldn't get away with this, go after the publishers, right? Call them cheap publishers. Because that's what's happening. They want to get their product out to the market as fast as physically possible to recoup their investment, when they could wait a month. In this case, they could have waited probably a week, and most of these problems wouldn't have existed, right? Now, then you run into the issue of, well, you're launching a game that close to Christmas, and fine, whatever. You should have launched it in January and reaped those gift card bucks post-Christmas, but still, unacceptable. Don't do that shit, devs. Well, don't do that shit, pubs. The developers obviously didn't want to lose the game.
Of course. Well, we'll see. Again, I am interested in the game. I'll see. Like again, I've been hearing varying things about it. Jago in the chat. Hey, Jago, by the way. I know he's been enjoying it. We'll see. I can understand a lot of the mixed reactions it's been getting, though, and the expectations too. It's just, of course, it had to be, like a month separated from the Dead Space remake. So,
Yeah.
And that is looking pretty good from what I can tell. So,
and
yeah.
Resident Evil 4 is like a month after that, right? That's February.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure. I'm pretty sure if the date still holds up. Yeah, but guys, any other comments on the Callisto Protocol? Yes, no. Okay, all right. Okay then, everyone. I think we're about done with this one. Another fun chat tonight with the guys talking about our thoughts on the Game Awards, the FTC picking a fight with Microsoft over Activision, and of course, the Callisto Protocol, our thoughts on that. It was really great seeing everyone here in the chat, and if you enjoyed our talk tonight, then please consider leaving a like, sharing this episode out, and sub to the channel, because hey, we would love to have you stick around. No lie there, no lie. And without further delay, let's get over to the outros. Tim Dog has, he left a little while ago, but you guys know where to find him, xCloud Tim Dog on Twitter. Panel members, guys, Crusader, I'll start with you. Good show tonight, pal. Where can everybody find you?
Yeah, you can find me at Crusader3456 on Twitter. I believe my pinned tweet is still literally all of my other accounts on everything. Yes, it is. So, you can find me on basically every social media app known to man, because I don't believe in just being on one anymore. It's too risky. If any single place that I am implodes, then you lose access to me, and I don't want anyone to lose access to me. Not that I think any place will implode, but there's always the possibility.
I've been saying that for a while.
At Crusader3456.
Yeah, no, that's why.
I don't think. If anything happens, it's a slow burn because they don't have advertisers anymore. But I don't think they'll go away. But yeah, no, just I don't. It was a wake-up call that I should diversify.
Oh no, I've been doing this for a while, even with the show for like the past few years.
Yeah.
I just put it everywhere. So, but because just because, right? Just to get more more eyes on you and so on. Just it's smart to divest in things. But no, good to know, Crusader. Moving on here, General MLD, pal. Hey, loved your thoughts tonight. Loved your contributions. Where can everybody find you?
Thank you. You guys can find me at MLD Ghost on Twitter, gamertag Ghost MLD. So yeah, it was great chat. Love everyone's input. Looking forward to the next one.
Of course. And last but certainly not, well, actually, no, I would technically be last, but second last, Centurion, pal. Good show, as per usual. Where can everybody find you?
Yes, definitely. Thanks to everybody in the chat that joined us. For those interested in finding me, you can find me here every Sunday night on TXR. You'll also find me on Gaming Beyond the Box 2 hours before this show starts. And you can also find me on Xbox Live, Twitter, and YouTube under Centurion1307.
All right. Good stuff, guys. Remember to check him out on Gaming Beyond the Box for sure. And of course, I'm Invader. You guys can find my content on YouTube at Invader Gaming. Also, check me out on the Bluebird app, Twitter at Invader_1986. Plus, I'm available on many other platforms. Just look in the description down below. Awesome chat tonight from the crew, and we look forward to talking about whatever happens starting on Monday, starting tomorrow. So we'll see what the next week holds for us. Later, folks. It's been a fun one.